Okay, today I'm going to take a look at the Truth Seekers platform. So, Truth Seekers is a community-led security DAO providing a complete DeFi security solution. So they offer a number of products such as wallet tracking, audits, um, and KYCs, things like that, paired with a number of utility tokens and NFTs to share revenue, for their services. But before we get into the actual details of the project, I just want to have a quick disclaimer. We are not financial advisors. All of the content on our website and social media are for education purposes. And so we strongly suggest that you conduct your own research and, where necessary, conduct the advice or seek the advice of a legal financial advisor. All projects and investments are risky, especially in the crypto and DeFi space. So, as always, please do proceed with caution. Okay, so what is True Seekers? Well, as I mentioned, True Seekers is a security platform, and their general thought process is to provide a quote unquote accountability beyond. So it will provide comprehensive audit and KYC services for cryptocurrency projects. They're governed by a set of bylaws, which we'll get into, which are strictly followed by themselves and the advisory board. They're controlled by a completely doxed and trusted team. So we'll get into some of the team and who the individuals are. And they implement, a certain number of services that help kind of elevate the security standard in the crypto security software auditing KYC, space. So in essence, they're trying to be a CertTech of sorts, providing, audit and KYCs with a kind of community and kind of accountability platform. So, who is the team? Primarily people that are speaking for this platform are Lou, who on YouTube is known as Crypto Truth Bombs, Aaron, who is known as Dow King, and Daniel Ash, which I don't believe has a online presence that I've seen thus far. In the future, they have spoken about hiring some security analyst and a chief audit officer. But right now, the three kind of leaders of the team, besides kind of being aware of the crypto space and having kind of influencer type capabilities, I don't think they have a programming or security background. They just kind of have knowledge of what constitutes a good crypto project. But with that being said, they have partnered with some other well-known kind of programmers and auditors in the crypto space. And so they, in essence, are acting, somewhat as like a organizer or a middleman. So they're working with, third-party groups and individuals that do audits, and then they're, bringing that information, to the greater space. So while they don't themselves, it seems, have super in-depth experience in some of these, security spaces and programming spaces, they do have a lot of connections and, uh, associations with individuals that do. All right, so let's take a deeper dive into what kind of services they offer. And so we'll go into these a little bit further, but just from a high level, they provide audits. So these are manual line-by-line audits, not something that is a automatic scan, but these are actual, a programmer looking at the code and providing thoughts about the solution. They are providing KYC, so not only for the CEO, but also the team. That includes, developers and programmers. I think they have a target of at least 50% of the team, where they do interviews and, probably most importantly, wallet verification. So think about when individuals have multi-sig on a project, they want to make sure they actually are controlling those wallets and that they're controlled by separate people, right? So if you have multi-sig, but somebody just controls the two signatures, that's not actually multi-sig. Liquidity locking, to help prevent rug pulls, whether this is for the individual team that's locking up a certain number of tokens, or it's as individuals are locking or staking, they provide some of those services. They're developing an application called a Seeker wallet, so basically doing a risk analysis on wallets and projects. So it's going to integrate with MetaMask. They haven't disclosed tons of details, but it's kind of like a pre-send concept. So if you're familiar with the pre-send project, it's very similar. Well, they will give you a warning or let you know about who you're interacting with. So if you're trying to maybe interact with a bad actor or a bad contract, it'll warn you, and they are charging a certain fee kind of on top of that for that service. They're also providing a wallet watcher service. So think about if there's a large project out there and you want to see that this project is dumping funds into a multi-sig wallet, and all of a sudden half the funds get transferred out. You can get alerts for those pretty quickly, so you can decide if you want to stay in the project or you want to bail. And then with all the revenue that they get, they are investing in things like nodes, so validator nodes and bots, trading bots. And then some of those investments, either the profits, directly or profits from the investments, are going to go to the community through their token and their NFTs, which we'll get into a little bit further. So as you can see, they're kind of offering a suite of security services with a focus on transparency, and then providing some of the revenue sharing, so to speak, with the community. Okay, so let's hop over to their website to look a little bit more in depth detail. So they had a pre-sale that ended early December, where they were listing a certain number of tokens. So those are not available from the pre-sale, but you can buy a token if you like. But we'll look at the dApp a little bit further and how you kind of interact with their ecosystem. But just know their pre-sale has ended, so you have to kind of get into the actual open market. And so overall, what is Truth Seekers? Well, they are going to be very selective on who they audit. So they don't want to just audit any project. They want to actually make sure that they think there's value in that product. So that's one kind of aspect of them. They are only taking payment in native token. So they don't, just because a project looks good, they're not going to accept their tokens as payment. They want to see actual value in something like USDC or BUSD or something like that. And that will kind of help solidify the revenue of the company itself. They are providing KYC, so they want all of the team verified, including the developer and the CEO. I think that last part is really important. So the development team is getting verified. So a lot of times you see projects that are run by a group and they aren't aware of what their developers are doing. They're paying off to a third party company, which is fine to do, but you want to be able to know who that developer is. So that's one aspect of it. They're not doing any third world country projects unless they have disclosure about where they're coming from. So as you can imagine, certain countries have stricter regulations. Like think about the U.S. and how their regulatory board works for say like the SEC. They want to make sure that if there's a problem, that proper law enforcement are taking into effect. And so if you're not in a first world country, they're going to require that you disclose who that country is. And again, based on this 100% selective, they might decide not to do an audit on that project. And then finally, they can reject an audit even after the fact. So if there's something that happens part of the project, they can say, hey, this is not, they don't give their quote unquote seal of approval, so to speak, on the project. So these are kind of the bylaws that they interact with when it's kind of talking about the services that they provide. So kind of keep that in mind as we go through the services. So first up, as I mentioned, was an audit as a service. So they're going to check the contract on a line by line analysis on things like they're going to make a request if they have any findings and review it. The team has to remedy that, and then they'll release the audit. So this is their overall kind of process for doing audits. And we'll look at the audits a little bit further in the video. They're providing identity as a service. So again, doing KYC for the not only the core members, but 100% of the team to kind of verify that they are who they say they are, and if they rug pull or run, at least you know who it is, and you can follow up with the proper authorities. They are going to have a DAO. It sounds like it's going to be part of their NFT offering, which we'll look at. But in some cases, they had mentioned about providing the DAO for token holders. So I don't know if they're going to split that up or if they haven't decided yet. But it's either if you hold the token or if you hold an NFT, they will have a DAO. Their investments, as I mentioned, they want to do some validator nodes on AVAX, FTM, DAG, and ETH. And the reason being is they'll have enough money pooled to have a proper full node so they can run the validators themselves. And then they can take a certain profit and send it to the team and the overall community. And also they're going to be investing in some trading bots and things like that. So not tons of outside investments. I'm kind of less concerned about that because they do offer security services, but just kind of be aware of that. The roadmap, so their token, which we'll get into tokenomics later, is deflationary. Um, they're going to do some analytics, on it, community voting, as I mentioned, the DAO, and then they want to have the truth token be a store of value, which will be interesting for a token that continually kind of goes up in price, um, which is fine, but it won't be kind of like pegged to a certain amount. So here's their roadmap. So in Q3, they had a private seed round. They were working on some partnerships, getting into some R&D, and developing a rollout strategy. End of the year here, they were announcing their tier one partners, doing some marketing, raising capital, which they've done through the pre-sale, expanding the team, kind of getting into their revenue strategy, and then delivery for MVP. I haven't seen tons around this. The actual delivery, they have done some audits on some projects, but still kind of waiting on like a full blown security offering and full blown dApp. But into Q1, which is kind of coming up, they're looking at kind of doing a risk analysis. They're kind of doing some integrations. Looks like here, exchange listings. So they are on PancakeSwap right now, and then kind of continuing expansion. Team is the same ones that I had mentioned before. Partnerships are still in progress. So that's their overall site. You can get a feel of how they are operating. Like I said, mainly kind of a security group. If you want to dig into more details, you can also view their white paper, which is like a wiki or a Git book. Again, their bylaws, same as what are on the website. Security services, as I mentioned, audit, identity, and liquidity locking. The Seeker wallet, as I was discussing before, kind of acts as like a pre-send kind of concept where they charge 3 cents per transaction, but it gives you a validation that hey, this person you're sending to is legit. Wallet Watcher, same type thing. You can kind of see what an app is doing. If somebody is sending a large amount of money for the contract you care about, you will get notified of that. Investments, just like I mentioned before, the previous investments. Token we'll get into a little bit later. They kind of regurgitate their wallet or their roadmap here and their team. Advisory board is still being developed, and then they have some links here. So that's their overall app. So we'll get into some more of the details, but that gives you a good high level overview of what Truth Seekers is and what they're seeking to do. Okay, so next let's take a look at the audits. So the audits aren't publicly available on their website yet, but they do have in their Discord a channel for audits, and you can find out what they've done so far. So it looks like they've done an audit on Animal Farm, Optimus, and Stable Fund. So let's take a look at how their audits look and what kind of level of detail they have. If you're familiar with Certex audits and that, these might be kind of similar in that vein. So in essence, they provide a kind of brief summary, in this case a 13-page PDF. Kind of has the entry page that shows what contract they did, the table of contents here, talking about their audit. So this kind of talks about a lot of audits just use modern tools like a static code analysis tool, which is in essence a way to send your code through a third-party tool that looks at like some audit databases, some known bad actors, some known vulnerabilities, and it spits out this report. So what they're doing here is they're kind of doing a line-by-line audit, and it's also kind of versioned and whatnot, and allows the client to address any issues. So they're taking more of like a white glove, hands-on approach to audits, which I like. I think that helps increase accountability. Surtech does the same type of thing. They do, static and dynamic or manual kind of audits, but just that's gives their background. Talks a little bit about that more in the methodology. So in addition to kind of static audits and manual audits, there's also a concept of like providing tests and ways to throw data at a project. So what if you try to send large amounts to the project to the contract? What if you try to break it in certain ways or not pass in a proper ID or try to call admin functions? So that's much more of a testing approach. It shows that in some cases they do that. I haven't seen that yet. I've only seen the manual line by line code review kind of style audits, but it really will be interesting if they kind of bring in the testing kind of methodology. Um, so that's kind of how they conduct audits. Gives you details, gives you the level of the project, so it shows you the links, um, the what chain they're on, what language, what the project is all about. If you're not familiar with Animal Farm, you can go to their site and get some details about it, but it also gives you a summary here. Versioning. So this was done in October, looks like, and revised at least one time, probably based on findings. Tells you all of the contracts that I reviewed. So these, you can basically copy and paste these addresses into BSC scan, right? You can basically just take this thing. I can't select it at the moment, um, but you can copy this, paste it into here in the address and see the contract that they're looking at, making sure it's the same version, right? So if a project was audited on this version, but then later changed to a different version, this audit becomes invalid. So that's an important note to be aware of. I do like that they list out the auditors. So this is Robert Morgan III and Mark, which I think is DeFi Mark. You can find both of these individuals in their Discord. So if you have questions on their audits, you can go ahead and ask them. And they are seemingly responsive. Tells the methodology, so the static analysis and dynamic analysis. It's not testing the UI, just testing the contract itself. And then it has some findings. So tells you the contract that had the finding, how severe it is, if the team resolved it or not, the line number of where it found issues, descriptions of it, if it's been resolved, and what the developer did to resolve it. So it has some detail. A lot of this stuff can be found kind of on the automated kind of static code analysis stuff. Looks like these guys had some low findings, informational type findings. This looks like it's in more detail here. Like you wouldn't find this like in a static analysis. So it's give me some more detail here. Here's a medium kind of finding. So same type of level of detail in a medium finding. They're giving an appendix, which is on every audit, just the classification of why they find each one to be the way they are. Disclaimer, it doesn't endorse the project effectively if they've done an audit. So relatively brief audit. Some things I would like to see from an audit here in this case is either a summary, like number of findings in each category might be useful. Maybe a kind of more subjective, I guess, description of, okay, well, like we found this is where this project could break, watch out for this thing. A lot of times, people are going to come in here and not understand the code or the details about what they're describing here. So it's probably important to give like a layman's explanation of this project and maybe just like a gut feel. I know that they're not into the endorsement space, but just say, hey, would they invest in Animal Farm? I've seen some videos where they've spoken about having a kind of quality rating. Just think about how Surtech does it, like this. With a number, trusted score, things like that. It'd be really cool to see something like that on their dApp, as well as just maybe a video that goes over all this stuff to talk about like why it's important, what the findings were, just to be able to translate. But this is their audit, so it's something useful to look into. And it seems like they're covering at least their bases. Again, there's some additional things they can do, but the bases are being covered. Okay, next up, I want to look at some tokenomics. So whenever you buy their token, which is the truth token, and actually we can take a look at that on PancakeSwap here. So right now they're only offering their token on PancakeSwap. So they have a liquidity pool. You can convert here like 1 BUSD gets me 2.3 truth tokens. So it's about 42 cents or so. You can kind of see the history. It kind of went down a little bit, but it's only recently been listed over here. Eventually they're going to move this stuff to their dApp. So I've got the dApp over here. Eventually they're gonna have a swap option here, but for now they don't offer that. So you can kind of see that just you click buy token here. Um, this actually brings you to the pre-sale, which won't let you actually buy anything. So ignore that. You have to actually go to PancakeSwap and find their token over here. So if you want to get anything right now, go on PancakeSwap. Otherwise, you can wait for their dApp to update. But just some things to note, they do have a sell tax, which initially is 15%, and I think they want to drop it down over time to 10%, then 5%, then 0. So you can find that on their wiki page here or their white paper. So right now for 2 weeks it's 15%, and it's going to 10 the next 2 weeks, and then 5% for 5 months, and then they might open this to a community vote later. 50% of their taxes are sent to a burn wallet. The remaining goes to their treasury. It actually looks like all of that is getting sent, but we'll take a look at that later. Um, so that's that. They are having buybacks. So any revenue they get from the system, they're going to buy back their token and burn it. And since there is a fixed supply of 11.2 million, that means the price is going to keep on going up because if there's a lower number of tokens, that means the overall price goes up because it kind of tips the scale, so to speak. Oops. At launch, sorry, they were at 60 cents. Now on Pancake, they're at 43. Um, and so it has gone down, a little bit, but it's been relatively, within that space. They do offer a staking option. So if you go into their dApp, grab that real quick. So you can see that they have staking for the token. So once you buy it on PancakeSwap, you can go over here, stake it for a different amount of time, if you like. And then for the supply, they did mint 11.2 million. Right now, there are 3.2 million staked at the time of recording this. The team has 2 million. The liquidity pool has 1 million on Pancake, at least at the time of creation. And then their partnerships are saving 1 million for like rewards, referrals, and things like that. So that's the token side. We'll look in more detail at the code later. In addition, they are also offering an NFT, which is quite interesting. I think it's being on the market for a certain amount. So basically, like anybody that invested a certain amount of money into the project will got the NFT for free. That pre-sale is done, so now you can get the NFT on Tofu NFT. Um, and looks like the floor is around. Let me sort this by low to high. 2.2 BNB. So what is that? Say BNB is like 250. That's around 550 at the moment. So quite expensive. But if you look at it, basically, you can, as an investor, you can buy the Truth token or BUSD on PancakeSwap through the liquidity pool. It shows Kyoto Swap, but they actually switched to Pancake, and then eventually they'll switch to Command when they have it on their app. You can stake it, which I had mentioned before, to get Truth tokens at a certain percentage, and then you can buy an NFT. So either you have a pre-sale NFT or a seed round NFT. So right now, I think all of the NFTs are All right, the seed round ones. I'll show you there. Right, it's this darker kind of color. So if you have one of their NFTs, basically what happens is through their audit revenue and through their investments, 13% goes to the NFT and 10% of their investment goes to the NFT. The other kind of side, the validator investments, 30% goes to the pre-sale. And then they're offering a new one. If I have it in here. They have basically a third NFT, which if you burn both of these, you get special access to their DAO and they're a private Discord. I think it's called a gold NFT or something like that. Let me double check the name. They had it in their announcements a while ago. Trying to find it. Maybe it's in Truth ecosystem here. Yeah, so basically, like you get a golden truth NFT if you burn the seed and pre-sale. You have to have both of those, and then you basically get special rewards. So you get governance capabilities, extra rewards, private Discord server for discussions. So it's kind of like premium access. You have that NFT. So those are kind of the tokenomics or ways to interact with their system. So just kind of briefly go over the dApp and those kind of things. So again, if you go to True Seekers, the main website, um, if you go to buy token now, right, that's bringing in the pre-sale, which won't get you anything at the moment, right? Because you can't, the pre-sale is closed. So you can kind of just ignore that link for now. What you actually want to go to, which they have the link on their Discord here, which shows their staking app. You can also go to their NFT collection here. So in their staking app, which is where everything is going to be eventually, you can connect your wallet, then you can deposit or withdraw by staking 7, 30, 90, 180, 365 days. All of these staking options are separate contracts. So we'll look at that when we look at the code. But basically, just deposit the money. It's going to sit in there for 7 days. You can get the effective APY of 15%. If you do withdraw early, you get hit with a hefty 30%. And any deposit gets hit with a 1% fee. Just kind of be aware of that. But it's pretty straightforward dApp at the moment. You just deposit money and you kind of get it staked for a certain amount of time. And then I already spoke about the NFTs, which you go over here. Connect your wallet to this third party, this Tofu NFT. And you can go ahead and go into one of these items here and then click buy now if you want, or you can make an offer to get the token. And then I imagine once they get rewards, they'll get airdropped. There's not much really to review at the moment on their app, so they're still developing that. So I'll have to do a follow-up video on the details there. But that's kind of how their app is working at the moment. So those are the general kind of tokenomics. We'll look into more detail when we look at the code in a moment. Okay, next up, we're going to take a little bit of a look at the code, just a kind of high-level overview of some things. There are three main contracts that I see that are relevant, kind of a discussion. One is their token itself, the truth token. Another is what they're calling a swapper. Their staking token, again, for that 7, 30, 180 day, etc. Staking, and then a fee receiver for how it kind of handles fees and whatnot. But first up, let's look at the token. And how I found this, not only can you find it, in the Discord and things like that, but it's also very useful that as you're kind of interacting with, contracts and whatnot, that whenever you go ahead and make a swap, you can look at the history within like say your MetaMask. So here you can kind of see some activity, and you can see that I deposited, say I deposited or staked some tokens here. I can click on that, click on View Block Explorer, and you can see this is the contract that I interacted with. If you click on that contract, you can see the code here, And this true staking, right, is the one that I have over here. Okay, so that's how I received the code, how I looked at it, um, and how I know that's the one I'm interacting with. So that's kind of an important note. Um, and so their overall token follows the standard kind of ERC20 interface. If you're not familiar with that, take a look at my tokens versus NFT video. It talks a little bit about that concept. You can also look at my truffle video about how you interact with a smart contract from a kind of popular JavaScript library. Um, but without further ado, let's look at the code. So they do have a fixed total supply. So this is 11 million tokens. And then, again, because they're using integer math here, there are 18 decimals. So it's kind of tacking that on to the end of it. You can see it over here. Just have the name and the symbol of the contract, pretty standard stuff. Balances and allowances. So balance shows how much a certain address has, and then the allowances show how much this contract can interact with that particular token. We do have a swapper, which we'll look at later. It has some kind of utility type functions for when you buy and sell. It does some stuff through the router. They're keeping track of how many tokens are burned of this 11,000. There's a buy and sell fee and a transfer fee, and then the denomination. So, some of this information they do, end up exposing, just like you might expect through some public methods here. And just as always, the way that we kind of look at this. So let me grab the contract. If I grab this guy, see the contract here, you can click on read contract and you can interact with that contract directly. So you can see, okay, well, the tax denomination is with this number of precision. You can see, okay, the buy fee is 0 right now. Let's see, what is the sell fee is 15%. Okay. You can see where the swapper connects. That's I got that address. Total burned, right? So this is with 18 decimals, but they have a certain percentage that burned. Total supply, that's how much is remaining in process, in circulation, or kind of held within their contract. And actually, we can take a look at, if you see their links. So I'm just pulling up the Discord here. Within their links, you can find this DeFi nuggets, which shows the same information: total burn, total supply, staked, things like that. But also I can kind of see that as I look at the contract, which I saw before. So again, some of that stuff is public, so it's useful to take a look at as you're working with a contract itself. Who gets the buy and sell fees? So those are recipients. So if I take a look back at that contract, is this the one? No, that's not the right one. Let's go back to here. There's the one. So you can see the sub recipient was. I thought there was an address for that. Yeah. So buying fee recipient is this one here. And this is that fee receiver. And that's the one that I look at over here. We'll look at that in a moment. That kind of keeps track of where the fees are getting sent to and whether they're turned on or off right now, right? So these Boolean values say, do we actually have it turned on? So let's see. Here's the sell fee recipient, the buy fee recipient are the same address. And then trigger buy recipient, trigger seller are both true. So basically they're all going in the same contract, that fee receiver, and they're all turned on right now. Okay. And it's not paused right now. Transfer fee is 0. The buy fee is 0. the sell fee is 15%. Okay, so let's get back over here. Okay. So let's go into some of the actual details. So when it first was created, it basically gave permission to the owner of the contract to be exempt from fees and to be exempt from pauses. So that's kind of a permission structure they have there. It gave the existing balance all to the owner originally, which again the owner should be able to find usually in here, up here. It's this contract. Right, so the owner is through a multi-sig. Gnosis is a kind of third-party tool that provides multi-sig. So that's useful. That's good to know. Like basically, like the person that has the total supply, or the contract that has it, um, which you can see, it's got a whole bunch of the BUSD, so 1.9 million in essence. It's got a whole bunch of the truth tokens, so 5 million are in this multi-sig wallet. We find out. Just gonna see if we can find the owners here. Okay, so they have 1, 2, 3, 4 signatures, right? I haven't seen who owns these ones. They could all be owned by the same person, right? So that's one of the things that KYC does that their platform's going to do. But there are 4 different owners of that, which gives me a little bit of sense of security. But that's how it started off. They have, the standard function, supply, balance of, and allowance, exposing names, symbol, decimals. You can approve the spending, right? So if you go and you want to buy, you have to approve first, which we spoke about in other videos. All right, so transfer, as well as the sell. Sorry, to buy. Let's look at transfer first here. So when you want to transfer, you're sending to a certain recipient in a certain amount, right? And then if the sender is the recipient, so they're kind of transferring their own, then we just call sell. Otherwise, we call transfer from. We look at transfer from. There's some basic checks. Recipient is not a null address. The amount is greater than 0. The balance, has to be, the sender has to have that balance. They can't be blacklisted. What's the permission that they had listed? If trading is paused, making sure that they're if they're exempt, that's okay. So that does the normal stuff, right? So it decreases or decrements the sender's account, calculates a fee, which we'll look into in a second, find out the amount that they have to send it to the recipient, emit an event that says that happened. If the fee is greater than 0, it grabs the destination. That's usually that variable that we showed a moment ago. Who's a recipient? It takes the fee and adds it to the balance of the recipient, so that person's getting that amount. So basically, like the actual recipient and the fee recipient are separate. Emits a transfer event for that guy, and then if they want to trigger the call it the fee receiver, and it's a valid recipient, it does that. So this is on a transfer, but it acts very similarly for a buy and a sell. It goes to the fee receiver. This trigger, what it does is basically it just says for the token, which is the truth token, it just burns it. So basically, it's burning the fees, which is great because then it increases the value of the token. So it's what the team said that they were going to do. So that's awesome. Let's take a look at how the tax works, because that was also another important component here. If they're exempt, right, either the sender or the recipient, that just says there's no taxes, and that whole block will not run. If it's a liquidity pool, then basically the amount times the buy fee, right, which the buy fee was 15%, divided by the tax denomination. So that's what it's calculating. And this returns a variable that has like three, kind of a composite variable that has three inside it. So the first is the amount. So buy fee times the amount. Then it's who's the recipient, and then if they should trigger on that, right? So it's doing that for the buy, it's doing it for the sell and the transfer. Like all, kind of standard stuff. So we saw the tax on there and that whole process. Burn is pretty straightforward. Just decreases the amount, decreases it from the supply, increases the total burned amount. Nothing really crazy going on there. Um, selling, and buying are very similar. Let's see. Okay, so if you want to sell the amount, we say what the amount is and who the recipient is. Does some basic checks. Does the transfer of balances. Same thing. It goes to a swapper and calls sell. And on the swapper, basically it just takes the amount, proves it, and then swaps it. So same thing as over here. I think that's pretty straightforward stuff there. But basically, the get tax happens on the transfer, and this transfer from is happening internally, both on the normal transfer or the sell, and then this transfer from to kind of column directly. So both of these, it gets called on. These get called from the ultimately from the pancake swap. Um, so that's the token in the swapper. Yeah. And then we talked about the fee receiver of burning. So those are those three contracts. So that's kind of like the buy and the sell and the transfer functionality. Um, the main thing to note are there are fees. The fees are booked. Like those are the two main things that we should kind of be aware of with this. They can pause it. So they have this trading pause on the flag here to the checking. So that's one thing where they can kind of pause the contract overall. There's some only owner function, so only the owner can pause it, which again the owner is part of that multi-sig, so that's great. Um, only the owner can. Let's just run through these admin functions real quick. So the owner can withdraw both the token and BNB. The owner can set fees and recipients. They can set the liquidity pool, right? So that's the AMM. Sets whatever account it wants to use for that. So if they want to unregister this, they might not want to have its own liquidity pool and just kind of do the regular swaps itself. Which we could say, if it's not liquidity pool, then it basically just uses a transfer fee. So it's that. They can set these auto triggers for triggering buy, transfer, whatever. They can set the fees, the exemptions. They can set a blacklist. They can set the swapper. And that's just the get text. So that's pretty much it for those tokens. So again, it looks legit from a token perspective. Obviously, the normal things to watch out for: an owner can withdraw. You want to you really, if you want to use a watcher, so whenever they get their watcher, you want to watch this contract to see what happens here, or what kind of transactions are happening, because these are going to be the important ones. Um, so, for example, yeah, you have to kind of view what this data is and what it's kind of doing. But you kind of want to watch that the contract to make sure that it's doing all the things it's supposed to do. Like here, it's basically calling transfer, right? Um, and you kind of watch it, make sure it's legit. Next up is the staking. So staking is just like on this site. One thing that kind of threw me off guard or that kind of maybe surprised me is that each of these are separate contracts. So these all have separate ones, each number of days. Um, so not a big deal, but that's something to watch out for. So I think this is the 7-day one that I have up on the screen here. Um, let's take a look at what it does. So it creates a reference to the token. So this is the truth token. It's creating its own token. So basically when you stake it, it creates this truth maxi token. So S truth. It maps the user info that's been staked. So basically if my address is staking something, it's going to say, what is the balance that I have? What block does it become unlocked so you can actually unstake it without a fee or a penalty? How much I've staked and how much I've withdrawn. It's kind of keeping track of info. The leave early fee is at 30% of what's exposed. There's a timer for that, so how many days. So let's actually look at that real quick. Let me grab the contract here. So this is the staking contract, and if I try to read it, I can see leave early fee 30% because the denominator is 1,000, so it's going to be 0.3. But there's a timer, right? So what does this timer mean? Well, it's the number of blocks that have to complete before you can leave. And then Binance, I think a block is like 3 seconds. So 201,600 times 3 seconds a block divided by 60 seconds in a minute, divided by 60 minutes in an hour, divided by 24 hours in a day. That's 7 days, right? So that kind of matches the 7-day contract here. That's how we came up with that. You can see total supply of the maxi. Do they default this to something? Let's see if it's showing somewhere. I imagine it would be the same as the. Oh, this might be the total supply being staked. So you read the contract, I think it was. This one. What supply is this? Wait. So again, these are 18 decimals. Something like that. With 562,000. So that shows up there. Yep, total staked. Obviously that's legit. Let's see what else is on there we want to look at. Total early fees taken. Wow, that's a relatively high amount of fees. So 9,000 early fees taken. I don't know if they show that on here. They don't. That's interesting. Some people had left early. You can look up remaining lock time by user. Total profits by user. That's pretty much it there. Total profits by user might be shown on the screen here. Yeah, your stake balance, your staking profit, your actual balance, APY. See. Let's take a look at some of the code here. So basically, let's just run through in some of an order here. All right, so sets the timer when you first start. Some basic stuff about the name, the total supply. We won't go over those things. Balance of is basically reflections from the contract balance. So the user info balance. This method here. It's basically calculating the price of the token. which basically says the token, which is the backing value, divided by the total supply. Okay. We get the conversion from when to go on to withdraw. Transfer is kind of just like a withdraw there. So owners can set the fees, the swappers, they can withdraw. They can withdraw a foreign token. Like in this case, that would be the truth token. Receive, I think, is getting the actual token. So basically, we're getting the balance before the calls. So we're buying the token, we're getting the staking token. The fee is that 1% over here. We're taking the fee. The fee, by the way, I think is getting burned as well. Let's take a look. Yep, just burning that fee based on the token. Received is less the fee. They either mint the token or they register first purchase. Register first purchase is really just keeping track of some basic info, like how much they've staked, and then it mints it for the user. Mint was pretty straightforward here. Mint basically like updates the user balance, taking their existing one and adding the amount, adding the total supply. Whenever you mint something, it updates your number upon you locked. So if you mint again later, it's going to change your lock amount. So was that just a first purchase there? So that's the receive. Deposit, very similar. They transfer this in, get a certain amount back. It takes a fee, again, that 1%. Registers the purchase, or mints it. Withdraw, basically it checks, the token balance, the contract balance, or the amount the user has, and withdraws it. Donate just gives the token to this contract. I'm not sure why someone would do that, but they can. These are the supporting ones. So if you withdraw the money, it does some checks. So basically, it burns the maxi token because that no longer exists. That stakes the representation of your money. Checks if your remaining lock time is 0, right? So that was that balance of 7 days. If it is, then the fee is 0. If not, it's the early fee times the amount. Takes that fee, which just burns it. The token, checks to make sure it has the balance it can send to, and then it just kind of just transfers the amount to the user. It's done. We make it all the user ready. Yeah, and just buying the token and transferring it in. So when it receives it, buys the token of the source of value there, which is just the token swap there. Earnings pretty straightforward, so we'll go over that. Over the calculate price, I think we spoke about that. It's the backing value divided by total supply. So it's going to kind of add that in there to get your dividend, so to speak. So that's the staking contract. So those are the main contracts in play. I'm sure they may have more. I haven't seen anything with the NFTs yet. I'm not going to look into that because I think just might be airdropping the rewards, which has nothing to do with the NFT code itself. But we can look into those in detail later. But that's how the code looks. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, there is a partnership going on with Command Swap. So look for that to come up relatively soon, where you can actually swap on the dApp. But for now, you have to go on the Pancake Swap, but that is the swapping mechanism that will be in the future. I'd like to give some of my overall thoughts and analysis on this project. So True Seekers is, attempting to do something that's quite noble. They're trying to provide security and kind of trust in a ecosystem like crypto that is relatively untrusted and somewhat of the Wild West. And they're doing it in a way where they are um, really connecting with the community and being interactive with them. If you look at a company like Surtech or any of the auditing kind of firms, they're a little bit more disconnected. So they want to kind of provide, additional connection points for the community. So really admirable. And they are working with some, relatively well-known, people in the industry. So I think that'll help, increase your trust in their overall project. Um, but let's speak about some of the risks. So one is utility is still being built. So their wallet, the Seeker wallet to monitor transactions, their kind of wallet watcher app to get alerts, their project ranking, all that stuff. Even to a certain degree, their audits. I think it's still being built out. So you are that's a pro and a con. You are on the ground floor, so to speak, at the start of this project, but they're going to have to take a little while to build it up. And so until you can see the actual utility, until you can say there are paying clients, repeat clients, there are not a lot of kind of audits happening in the crypto space continually. So until you see that revenue stream, you should always kind of proceed with caution. The direct team members, right? So they don't have any programming background from IC or security background. Now they are partnering with individuals that do, but the individuals themselves that are running the project do not have it. So that's a little bit of a red flag. You generally want somebody with an expertise running a project like this. So I hope that they can hold true to their word about hiring a some analyst and some what are they calling it, a chief audit officer that will help increase the trust. One thing that seemed a bit odd is that they're partnering with some risky projects, right? So the drip farm influencer that runs the animal farm, um, a lot of his videos are just speaking about doing this stuff kind of for fun from the gambling aspect. So that might be a potential risk. They also had mentioned about partnering with Stable Fund, which we've all seen. Stable Fund had um, not really held true to their word and kind of left investors in the dark, I would say. So I'm not sure if that's just for influence, trying to get an additional reach, but that seems to be a red flag for me. They seem hyper focused on the tokenomics. So they've got a token, they've got staking, they've got multiple NFTs, so three different NFTs. They had they wanted to have a private seed round. It actually became public, I believe. But such focus on the finances before getting like a solid product out feels wrong to me, right? If you think about how startups work, yes, they do get seed funding, so I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but they're generally focused on providing this quality thing that they know how to make. So I would suggest like really digging down and working on the dApp and getting focused on that before really launching the project or getting really crazy about the tokenomics. So it's another potential red flag. Um, the audits weren't super detailed, right? So it seemed very similar to anything that a scam would do. Now, admittedly, most smart contracts are simple. They don't require a lot of in-depth analysis because there's not a lot of code, right? It's not like building a Google or a Facebook or something. But I would like to see a little bit more details in the audits, like giving an opinion on it, or giving like a high-level overview, or talking about like where this thing could break, even though the code is solid, right? Say like if the four or five people that have the multi-sig, if they all decide to run away with the money, they could. Like nobody can stop them. So listing out some of those maybe social hacks or those risks that are outside of code would be important. The team doesn't seem KYC'd or doxed really. Like, some of them do show their faces, some of them show their first and some even their last name. Um, but it doesn't seem like they're formally KYC'd. Um, and it didn't seem like their project themselves are audited. So I ran through some of the code, but I didn't see their same internal team reviewing their code, which would be useful, right? In a security project. You want to be super transparent. It's like hyper transparent. So I would say increase that to increase the trust of the team. With that being said, there are some safeguards, right? So, um, Dow King and whatnot, they have like a stake, a reputation at stake in the community. So if this project fails, like they might just get rid of any kind of YouTube influence that they ever have, right? So that's important. Um, and then in the future, I think they can use their own tools and monitor their services. But I haven't seen it yet, but that is something that I think they could do. So, overall, there are a lot of risks. And so I think this is just important for people to be aware of. It doesn't mean I'm saying the project is bad. It does seem like they have good intentions, although a little bit focused on the finances. It could be, it has potential to be a good project. So, as always, it's not financial advice, just proceed with caution and make your own decisions. But these are my overall assessments of the project. And finally, just a quick credits. This slide deck, the format and the coloring and whatnot styles were made by Slides Go with flat icon and free pick. I developed all the content on here, but the kind of styles and the images and stuff was on Slides Go, which is super useful. So definitely support them. But with that being said, I will put all the links to these the slides and the dApp and all that in the description. Tell me what you think in the comments. What do you think about Truth Seekers? Is it going to stick around? Is it a fad? Just kind of let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks.